All right, good evening, everybody. Just let me know if you can hear me okay. Give me a shout in the chat box there. All right, thank you, Linda and Brian. Good to be with you. Thanks all for being here. All right, we'll go ahead and join palms as we get started. You can repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. And putting the palms down. All right, good evening all. Thanks for being here once again. There's a chat box there on your screen. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Feel free to say hello or introduce yourself, anything you want to share. It's nice to be with you all. I look out at still an empty temple as we remain closed, but every day getting closer to opening again. So we look forward to that happening relatively soon. We're not there yet, but everything just stays on course as is, then I would imagine very soon. So sit tight. But yeah, it'll be nice to have people here again. That's for sure. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started with the meditation practice. A couple things I'll tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. You don't ask yourself, is it working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, wherever you are, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. If you're new to the practice, just a reminder, you won't think nothing. You're not trying to shut off your brain or shut off your thoughts. You're just trying to observe them as they pass. I'll say things periodically to wake you up because you've fallen asleep, or just remind you that you're lost in thought and bring you back to the present moment. Posture, you want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten, shoulders are relaxed. If you're on a chair or couch or bench or whatever you're sitting on, same thing, relaxing the shoulders. Hands are on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important with this practice, don't expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply going to continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Return attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, just sitting, breathing. keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation, yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing, and with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe, knowing with each breath there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly, And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, it's not from anything I said. It's not from how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's not from the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in and where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. For most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives, but with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not easy. It's not necessarily fun, but it's free. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. Sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, say, and do. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. In reality, not much changed. I try to not complicate this practice. It's part of why, for me, let's see, I've been leading this class 13, probably about 13, 14 years, twice a week. And I always call it Intro to Buddhism, because for me, the practice of the Buddhist teachings is getting to know yourself, your own mind, your own thoughts, your own words, your own actions. And that changes every day. Your experiences change, your conditions change, the people in your life change, your jobs change, your amount of money you have or don't have changes. Everything changes. And so as we go through these changes every day, we have opportunities to be mindful and aware of what we think, say, and do. So Buddhist practice is an opportunity to reflect back on your own role in all of that. And I don't think that's anything that one ever, well, I'll put it to you this way. I would never feel comfortable leading anything other than an introductory course to getting to know yourself. The Buddha taught that there is no self. So the moment you think you know yourself, then you really don't. Because if you're at a place where you think you know yourself, then you don't really understand the Buddhist teachings. What we know is an illusion, story, an idea, just this facade in a way. For me, no self has always meant that there's nothing that defines you. There's just your actions. And your actions don't make a self. Karma is your action, what you think, say, and do. And so your actions are what you bring into the world. But the actions that you bring into the world is not defining you. It's just action. So now that I've clarified that for you, I'll pause. For me, I really just prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that's on your mind. And I'll use the rest of our brief time this evening for questions. So you'll see somewhere on your screen there. And again, if you're new, welcome. You'll see somewhere a chat box. Feel free to type in thoughts, questions. And we'll go from there. Well, good evening, my friend. How can Buddhism help me become a more mindful parent with respect to feeling disrespected and dealing with my own angry responses? Yeah, that's a challenge. It's a great question. And, there's kind of a couple things going on here with this question. And I think first, not just for you, as you know, I'm not always answering questions specifically for one person or the person who asked it, but for everybody. First is to understand that, the question of how can Buddhism help me become a more mindful parent? So let's kind of stop there for a minute. It's already helping you. And what I mean by that is, here you are, you've been sitting with us for years. The simple fact that you're asking the question of how do I become a more mindful parent means that it's helping. And it might not always seem like it, and I'll get to kind of the rest of the question here, but I just want to pause here for a moment and have you, hopefully, and anybody else who struggles with these same topics, um, take a moment to kind of reflect and give yourself a little bit of credit or a lot of credit for continuing to try to be a more mindful parent. Because the simple act of being here, you know, virtually online, physically when we're open, asking this question, that means you care a lot. And so give yourself credit first and foremost for having the wisdom and compassion to be diligent with trying to be a more mindful parent. Because, and this is no knock on parents, but there's a lot of parents out there that are not concerned with being more mindful or kinder or gentler or more compassionate or wiser. They're just not. And this isn't about you versus them, but I just bring it up to point out that I think in times like this, especially when you look at the, you know, the continuation of your question, you know, your own anger responses, your own anger, things like that, I've found it helpful to, like I said, give yourself a little credit first. Because no matter how angry you may respond, and I'll get to that, it could always be worse. And knowing that that's on your mind, that this is on your mind, that Buddhist practice is on your mind, that being a more mindful parent is on your mind, means usually, ideally, hopefully, practically, that you are not responding nearly as bad as you potentially could. So I think that's the first part. The second part is with regards to feeling disrespected. So, you know, being a parent and having children of any age, whether they're, you know, especially if they're teenagers, um, it's just something teenagers do, right? I'm sure all of us who are no longer teenagers can look back and reflect upon the time that as teenagers, how we disrespected parents or elders or, you know, anyone like that. And I think it's important to remind ourselves that when we are being disrespected, and all of this stuff I think plays into really the heart of your question, which is, you know, dealing with your own angry responses. But a big piece of this is understanding that when children, especially if they're teenagers, disrespect us, it's not about us. So if your children um, are disrespecting you, it's very common for us to turn that around and think like, well, what am I doing wrong? Am I a bad parent? Do I not love them enough? You know, whatever questions, you know, you may ask yourself. And for those who, you know, don't know me, I'm not a parent. So um, there's only so much I can say with regards to what that's actually like, because I honestly have no idea what that's like. But in working with enough people around this for a long time and knowing what it's like to be a disrespectful teenager, it's not about you. Their actions, which are disrespectful, whether it's, you know, yelling at you or saying nasty things or calling you names or ignoring you or whatever these things are that teenagers are doing, that's because they're struggling. They're having a really hard time with whatever it may be, with their own identity, with their own, you know, social challenges and relationships and struggles, not to mention the 2 years that we've been living in with the pandemic, which has just made being a teenager a billion times harder with everything that's going on. So setting that aside for a moment, just try to tell yourself it's not about you, that you could do everything perfect and be the perfect parent. and the kids could still disrespect you. And once you begin to recognize that their lack of respect towards you is because of their own suffering, then that's where the cultivation of compassion comes in. And you just love them. And I get it, in that situation, there's nothing you can physically, mentally, emotionally necessarily do, because they're not allowing you to. They're shutting you out, potentially. I'm just rambling here. But sometimes that compassion, that love, means you just take it. And you understand that their lashing out or their disrespect is coming from their pain. And I think if you are able to pull this off once in a while and see the pain that they're experiencing, and I get it, as a parent you want to fix that, but if they're not responding to you, then you can't fix it. So you just have to try to see it and hear it and feel it. And if you can do that, then again, getting to the last part of your question, which is your angry responses. When people come at us in a disrespectful manner, it triggers us, and we want to yell back and scream back and have angry responses, whatever that looks like for you. But that's because we're wrapped up in I am hurt. But if we make it not about us, there's no I that's being hurt. Again, non-self. There's not this permanent self that is being hurt. There's this idea that you have that a child shouldn't disrespect the parent. And I agree with that. But no matter how much you agree with that, it doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. So you abandon and you let go of this idea of thinking that they're going to respect you all the time, because they're not. This is the reality. And if you can see and feel their pain, that's where the love comes in. And when we love, which I know you do, but when we really cultivate compassion towards them for their suffering, and we love them as they are, as these mean, nasty, screaming kids, when we feel that love within us and that compassion within us for them, anger cannot arise. But if we allow those clouds to come in of the anger, then that's all we're filled with, is the anger. And then we yell back, and then we feel bad, and then we think we're bad parents, and then we don't know what to do, and then we show up here. It's kind of this cycle. So I don't know if any of that's helpful, but listen to them, hear them, remind yourself it's not about you, and just believe that in time they can and will grow out of that. And I also, last thing I'll say is, every situation is different, but in most cases, not all, I've seen the opposite, but in most cases, their disrespect towards you as parents, it's not coming from a place of I don't love you, dad or mom, or it's just coming from a lack of maturity and just a sadness and a pain that they're feeling. But the love is there. The respect hasn't just caught up to it yet. But usually in time it will. So, and then someday, 25 years from now, they'll be sitting in a meditation class somewhere asking the exact same question, trying to figure out how to get their teenagers to treat them with respect. And that's when it'll click. So, hope that's helpful at all. Other thoughts, questions? Vicky, I love. Thank you, Vicky. I love everything you said. So beautiful. Yes, and you know, you being a parent, you get it. You understand. You know, sometimes the challenge is because I know so many of you, and I know situations you're in. It makes it a little difficult. So I try not to make it too personal. Um, but you know, I know Vicky and anyone else here who's been in that situation. Sometimes you just got to ride it out and keep showing up for meditation to keep yourself sane, unfortunately. And just give it time, you know, 5 years maybe. That was great and helpful. Thank you. Absolutely. Always here, my friend. You know, I'm really great at talking from the place of being the teenager who disrespected parents and didn't listen to anything. Um, because you know, I had that role nailed. I mean, if there was a part for an angry, pissed off teenager who didn't listen to anything his parents said and argued about everything, I'm a winner right there. So, as my mom likes to say, if there's any parents out there worried about their children, just talk to her and she'll tell you that there's hope for all of you. So, um, you too can end up leading Buddhist classes someday. So don't give up. Other thoughts, questions? And everything I'm saying really, the practice, I don't even know if I said the word patience, but it really is, it's kind of what I'm talking about and around is just being patient with kids, with everybody really, as everyone works through their challenges. Um, so, what else? Questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with? It's crazy. I'll just share this random thought. Uh, um, Before other questions come in, but a lot of you've heard me talk about how when we first came into this building at the end of 2016, and it had been empty for about at least a year, and I always say that, when Maggie and I first walked in, like this place felt incredible. There was nobody here. We walked in and this like space just felt amazing. And I always said, that was a credit to the people, the Swedenborgian congregation that had been here for 90 years. And it's funny because as I'm sitting here now and I'm looking out, and it's really crazy because, especially those of you who've been here, I mean, the setup is exactly the same: cushions, chairs, pews, and it's just, I'm just sitting here in this empty space, but it feels so good in this space. And it's like you are all here. It's really strange. But it's just something that has hit me the last few times I've led here, where it's like the place is physically empty of people, but you're all here. And it's really cool to see what we have added to this space in the last, 5 years, coming up on 5 years. And it's crazy. Yeah. 95 years old now. This place has been here. But anyways, other thoughts, questions? Brian, do you believe enlightenment is possible for everyone who practices diligently? I believe enlightenment is possible for everyone, period. Well, that's irrelevant. What I'm getting at is what I caution you on. I'll start here. And I think if I recall correctly, Brian, you're not like new, meaning first time here, because I know you sat with me before, but you're relatively new or newer to Buddhism. My guess, yes, I think so. And so, reading some and listening to me and whatnot. And so, I talk about diligence a lot. It's the last thing the Buddha taught, before he died. He said, strive on with diligence. We're new to Buddhism. We hear about enlightenment. We see it as this thing we're trying to attain. And so that brings up the question of, do you believe enlightenment is possible for everyone who practices diligently? Now, I want to caution you there, because just in the way the question is worded, I don't want to like kill your excitement or anything like that, but I want to caution you and everybody to not think about enlightenment as a goal or something you're trying to attain. I'll touch on that in a minute. It's not like, okay, it's, whatever time it is right now, 7:51, and if I practice diligently, for the next 13 years, then I'll get there. Because with that mindset, what one is doing is creating this idea that enlightenment is something that is like out there, or something that we're striving for. And the idea of striving for something, to get somewhere or to attain something, that in and of itself brings rise to the self, and therefore enlightenment will not arise. The Heart Suture is really important, I think, to read. The heart of Buddhist teachings, the Four Noble Truths: life is suffering. There's the cause of suffering. There's the ending of suffering. And there's the path, the Eightfold Path. And the Heart Sutra says there's no suffering, there's no cause of suffering, there's no cessation of suffering, and there is no path. There is no wisdom or any attainment. With nothing to attain, bodhisattvas relying on prajnaparamita attain anuttara samyak sambodhi, supreme ultimate enlightenment. But that only occurs when there's the understanding that there's nothing to attain. So anytime anyone asks questions around enlightenment, I want to bring up the Heart Sutra because it addresses this dualistic mind that says, I'm unenlightened and I need to become enlightened. There's a great commentary on the Heart Sutra by Thich Nhat Hanh. I highly recommend. The other thing, from a very practical standpoint, to point out with enlightenment is that what the Buddha taught very specifically is that this enlightenment, this awakening, is already within us. It's called bodhicitta, Buddha nature. It is awakening to the Buddha nature that is already with us. So, practically looking at the question of, do we practice diligently? Yes, practice diligently. But do not practice diligently with the idea of, I'm practicing diligently so someday I can be enlightened. The bodhicitta, the Buddha nature, the metaphor that I find really helpful and beautiful is the sun. And on a day like today in San Diego, you don't see the sun much. Why? It's hidden from the clouds or behind the clouds. But the sun didn't vanish. It didn't disappear. It didn't go away. It's there. We just can't see it because the clouds are blocking it. And so the practice of diligence is to move the clouds. The clouds in this example is the three poisons, the greed, the anger, and the ignorance. This is what causes our suffering. This is what keeps us from recognizing our own Buddha nature, our own bodhicitta. This is what keeps us from awakening, from enlightenment. Practice diligently to become less greedy, less angry, and less ignorant, but not with the goal of attaining enlightenment. So I hope that's helpful. And, just to clarify, for me as a practitioner, I have no aspirations or goals of awakening. I have zero aspirations or goals of enlightenment. I have absolute, deep desire to be less greedy, less angry, and less ignorant. That's my focus. To be fully aware of my greed, my anger, and my ignorance. And to work through that. That's it. So, hope that's helpful. So I think I'll close on that. And we'll go ahead and join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to the more than 5.5 million lives that have been lost during this pandemic, to their family and friends who suffer, and to my dear friend, David, for his loss of his friend Eric, and to Eric's family and friends who suffer at this time. May they all be at peace. May they all be free from suffering. So a few quick announcements before you all jump offline here and start Netflix. Thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple 15 years ago to bring Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Every night we have different practices going on. Every morning, Monday through Friday, we sit 8 and 8:30. We have a large recovery sangha, anyone battling addiction, drugs, alcohol, or anything else that meets as well. We have a family group, kids group, college group, and a beautiful homeless hats project that knits warm hats, beanies for people living on the streets. We shut down for 16 months when the pandemic first hit. We opened up for about 6 months and then closed again January 2nd. So we've been shut down now again, about 7 weeks. We are, as I mentioned earlier, assuming everything continues, headed in this positive direction. We should be opening up again relatively soon. I don't have a date for you, but it's nice that we're actually talking about when we're going to open again. So we look forward to that. But at this moment, we're just grateful that we can gather here virtually. Buddha for You, same thing, is closed. If you need anything, just go to the website and you can have anything shipped or pick up curbside. So again, I thank you all for joining us. We wish you well, and we will see you soon.